What if the person you trust most, your kindest friend, your most ethical colleague, or even yourself, could one day commit an unthinkable act of cruelty? Picture this. Someone you'd call a good person slowly morphing into a monster you no longer recognize. Sounds like a nightmare, right? But here's the chilling truth. This isn't just a random twist of fate. It's a pattern carved deep into human history and behavior. In this video, we're diving headfirst into the dark question that haunts us all. Why do good people turn evil? We'll uncover the hidden psychological forces that can flip a saint into a sinner, backed by jaw-dropping experiments and real-world horrors. And here's the kicker. By the end, you'll start to see how these forces might already be lurking in your own life. Stick around. This isn't just about others. It's about staring into the mirror and asking, could it happen to me? Let's find out. The Lucifer effect is a concept popularized by the psychologist Philip Zimbardo, who conducted the infamous Stanford prison experiment. What he revealed was profoundly unsettling. The environment we are placed in, the roles we adopt, and the authority we obey can twist even the most virtuous individuals into perpetrators of harm. Think about it. History is filled with examples of ordinary people who committed extraordinary atrocities. The guards in Nazi concentration camps, the soldiers who carried out ethnic cleansing, or even the bystanders who stood silent as horrors unfolded. All of these individuals were not born evil. They were, in many cases, regular people swept up in circumstances that unleash the darkest parts of human nature. Why does this happen? The answer lies in a combination of psychological and social forces that shape behavior. First, there is the power of authority. Psychologist Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments in the 1960s showed that people would go to extreme lengths, even inflicting pain on others, when instructed by an authority figure. In his study, participants were asked to deliver electric shocks to another person, who was actually an actor pretending to feel pain. Shockingly, most participants continued administering shocks, even when they believed they were causing severe harm, simply because they were told to do so. Now think about your own life. How often do we follow instructions without questioning them? Whether it's from a boss, a leader, or even societal norms. What would you do if someone in a position of power asked you to compromise your morals for the greater good? Another critical factor is the concept of dehumanization. When we strip others of their humanity, labeling them as the enemy, subhuman, or less than, it becomes easier to justify acts of cruelty. This is a tactic used time and again in propaganda, war, and even everyday conflicts. It's easier to harm someone when you no longer see them as a person. Consider the language we use today in social and political discourse. How often do we see groups of people reduced to labels or stereotypes? Reflect on how this diminishes our empathy and connection, creating an us versus them mentality. But what about the tipping point? The exact moment when a good person crosses the line. That moment is often subtle. It begins with small compromises, a decision to stay silent when witnessing injustice, an agreement to follow along just this once. Over time, these small choices accumulate, creating a slippery slope that can lead to profound moral failure. Pause for a moment and think, have you ever made a choice that went against your values because it felt easier or safer? What were the consequences? As we move forward, we'll explore how to recognize these moments before they spiral out of control. More importantly, we'll uncover how to foster resilience against these psychological forces. But dehumanization is only part of the puzzle. Social roles and group dynamics also play a significant role. Zimbardo's Stanford prison experiment vividly demonstrated this. College students were randomly assigned to be either guards or prisoners in a simulated prison environment. Within days, the guards began to exhibit abusive behavior, and the prisoners showed signs of extreme stress and submission. What was shocking was how quickly the participants lost sight of their individuality and conformed to the roles they were given. This raises a critical question. How much of our identity is shaped by the roles society imposes on us? Are we truly free to act as individuals, or are we subconsciously playing parts dictated by the systems around us? These forces, authority, dehumanization, and group dynamics, are not theoretical. They are active in our daily lives, influencing the way we think, act, and perceive others. We see them in workplaces, schools, social media, and even within families. Recognizing these forces is the first step in resisting them. But first, let's confront an even deeper question. Are some people immune to the Lucifer effect, or is it a danger we all face? Stay tuned, because what comes next will challenge everything you think you know about yourself and human nature. Let's now confront the question that lingers in the minds of many. Are some people truly immune to the Lucifer effect? The answer, as uncomfortable as it may be, is that none of us are entirely immune. Psychologists have long debated the role of personality in resisting corruption and moral collapse. While certain traits, such as strong empathy, self-awareness, and moral courage, may act as protective factors, the truth is that under the right, or perhaps the wrong, circumstances, anyone can fall prey to these forces. Think of it this way. We all carry within us the capacity for both great good and unspeakable harm. This duality is a recurring theme in literature, religion, and philosophy. Carl Jung, the renowned Swiss psychiatrist, described this as the shadow aspect of our psyche, the darker, often repressed parts of ourselves that we are reluctant to acknowledge. Jung believed that to fully understand ourselves, we must confront this shadow and integrate it into our conscious awareness. Have you ever felt a surge of anger or envy so intense that it surprised even you? Have you ever said or done something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted deeply? These are glimpses of the shadow at work. Left unchecked, this shadow can grow and manifest in ways that align with the Lucifer effect. But here's the hopeful part. Awareness is our greatest defense. By understanding the psychological mechanisms that lead to moral collapse, we gain the power to resist them. So let's delve deeper into how these forces operate in the real world and how we can counteract them. One of the most insidious mechanisms is something psychologists call moral disengagement. This concept, introduced by psychologist Albert Bandura, explains how individuals rationalize harmful behavior to avoid feeling guilt or remorse. For example, someone might convince themselves that everyone else is doing it, or that the ends justify the means. These rationalizations create a psychological distance between the individual and their actions, making it easier to justify wrongdoing. Consider how this plays out in everyday scenarios. A student might cheat on an exam, telling themselves it's just a one-time thing. A manager might treat employees unfairly, believing it's necessary to meet company goals. In these moments, moral disengagement allows people to act in ways that contradict their values. The antidote to this is what some psychologists refer to as moral vigilance. This involves actively questioning our actions and their consequences, even when it's uncomfortable. Ask yourself, am I justifying something that, deep down, I know is wrong? Another powerful tool is the cultivation of empathy. Empathy acts as a counterbalance to dehumanization. When we truly see others as complex, feeling individuals, people with hopes, fears, and dreams, it becomes much harder to harm them. This is why storytelling, art, and genuine human connection are so vital. They remind us of our shared humanity and break down the barriers that divide us. But what about the societal level? How do we address the larger systems and structures that perpetuate harm and enable the Lucifer effect on a grand scale? This is where the role of leadership and collective responsibility becomes crucial. History has shown us that charismatic leaders can either uplift or corrupt entire societies. Adolf Hitler, for example, manipulated fear and prejudice to justify atrocities. On the other hand, leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. used their influence to inspire positive change and resistance against injustice. This brings us to a pivotal question. What kind of leader do we choose to follow? And what kind of influence do we exert on others? Even if we're not in positions of traditional authority, we all have influence within our families, communities, and workplaces. The question is whether we use that influence to promote compassion and fairness, or to perpetuate harm and division. Reflect for a moment on your own life. Who are the people you look up to? What values do they embody? And equally important, what kind of example are you setting for those who look up to you? Can we stop the darkness? The fight begins here. Empathy might just be our secret weapon. When we see others as human, full of hopes, fears, and dreams, it's a lot harder to hurt them. Storytelling, art, even a simple conversation can break down those us versus them walls. And don't sleep on leadership. History proves it can corrupt, like Hitler did with fear, or inspire, like Gandhi and MLK did with hope. Here's the million-dollar question. What kind of influence are you wielding every day? In your family, your job, your community? Are you fueling division or building bridges? We've just scratched the surface of this mind-blowing puzzle. How good people fall and why we're all at risk. Want to know how to fight back and stay on the side of light? Smash that subscribe button because video 2 is coming and it's packed with practical ways to resist these forces and become a force for good. You won't believe what's next. See you there.